Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. We're coming to you live from Auckland Park here at the SABC in Johannesburg. The African viewers who follow us all across the continent, we want to give them a special welcome tonight after we rounded off the commemoration of Africa Month just last week. The SABC has instituted a commission of inquiry to probe sexual harassment in the workplace, as well as editorial interference in the newsroom. Both matters, very, very crucial matters. We look forward to the outcomes of these important probes as we seek to rebuild the broadcaster after a very, very difficult recent period that it experienced. To report matters in this regard, you can email us at newsinquiry@sabc.co.za. You can also visit our offices countrywide and make your suggestions or submissions in the boxes allocated for this purpose. June is Youth Month in South Africa. Let's take a look from the archives in terms of where it all began.
On the 15th of June, saying the students are going to march on the 16th. We never thought it for it to have been, to be big, something big. No. We just took it and said, well, it's one of those student marches. And of course, this one was a different one. And the police parents were caught unaware. Everyone was caught unaware. The police, everybody in the township was caught unaware. Soweto had never been what it was on that day after the fatal shot of 13-year-old Hector Peterson. I had never seen the children so angry. Police cars being burned, buildings being destroyed. Anger was out. The entire South Africa, the politics of the country changed that day in 1976. Anything that was white was dealt with. Anything that belonged to whites was burned down. This is when we realized that our children were not going to take a smack on the left and a smack on the right and just keep quiet.
Tonight we're talking Youth Matters. This month we'll also take time to reflect on the heroic deeds of the youth of 1976. 42 years ago, young people reignited the struggle for liberation by bringing education into the mainstream of that struggle. The question of language was at the center of indeed those strives, with students fighting against the imposition of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. Some of them laid down their very lives to realize that objective. And so every June 16 since then, we ask the question, where is the equivalent of this bravery amongst the youth of today? The dawn of a new South Africa saw the birth of something that was called the National Youth Commission, that has now morphed into the National Youth Development Agency. It has not been in the news sometimes for all the good reasons, but the chairperson tells me that this is ancient history, and the NYDA has turned the corner and is changing young people's lives. Do you think the NYDA is relevant at all? Have you experienced their assistance where you work, where you live? Tweet us at JJ Tabane at SABC News Online with your perspectives about the matter. Sifiso Mtsweni is my guest tonight as the chairperson of the NYDA to help me understand what is the national agenda for young people today. Let's go talk frankly to him. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for agreeing to join us tonight. A very, very sleep there, man. You know, young people being in the front line, not leaving it to the politicians or not leaving it to the adults, but actually reigniting the struggle. What, in your view, is the equivalent of that kind of mobilization today in your perspective?
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting us. It's good to see you.
Sure.
Look, I think you would have seen quite recently that young people in South Africa remain quite strong. Their voice remains quite strong. Just recently, there was a Fees Must Fall movement that actually forced government to look into issues of fees and so on. As we sit here today, government is providing education for free. This has been an issue that has been raised post-1994 for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now, young people by nature, their voices remain strong. They remain mobilized. And probably as we move along, issues of unemployment, issues of skilling young people, issues of job creation will remain at the center of the agenda of young people. And I'm sure that if we don't resolve those issues quite quickly, those young people will see the very same scenes as the ones that we were just showing of 1976.
Interesting you say that, but don't you think that youth post-94 were demobilized? And look at the example you've just given about free education.
Yeah.
You know, the ANC passed the resolution about that 10 years ago, right?
Well, yeah.
But it was activated literally only 2 minutes ago, just before the NASREC conference. Don't you think that shows a level of demobilization? Because once you even have the resolution, to take 10 years to actually get it to be a reality.
Well, I think let's look at what the resolution said.
Yeah.
The resolution said we'll progressively introduce free education. That was in Polokwane 2007. Now, if you look at the government from 2009, when we talk about progressive introduction, the third year of study was actually was being given for free.
Okay.
As the year progresses, it was moving backwards.
Yeah.
Now, the decision that was actually implemented just before NASREC was now in 2012 at the Bloemfontein conference. The resolution was now given more teeth to say we're no longer speaking about progressive introduction, but there must be implementation. And you are correct that sometimes government takes its time in terms of implementing some of the resolutions. We do have organized groupings of young people. We've got student movements such as SASCO, COSAS, and all of them, which have been engaging the ruling party around these issues.
Yeah, after the break, I want to build on that, to say whether you think that given the sometimes slow pace of implementing some youth-pointed programs, that in fact the government takes the NYDA seriously. We'll talk about that after the break. We're talking to Sifiso Mtsweni, who is the chairperson of the NYDA tonight. We're talking youth matters. We're underlining the big themes around focusing on young people this month. Stay tuned.
I feel it's a real person.
And it's nutritious and delicious.
It's good. I really like it.
Let's celebrate being South African. We love our beer, we love our food, we love our music.
For knowing who are going, you must know where you come from.
I'm excited to be part of this year.
For all your travel trends, catch us every Sunday, 12 midday on Channel 404. News at 9. We go beyond the headlines of the day and breaking news to bring you all the angles and in-depth analysis of stories that impact your life. We are on the ball with all economic stories. Our bureaus around the globe are ready to connect you to events as and when they happen. So join us every day at 9 to zoom in on the day's big stories.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. My name is Nkgopotse JJ Tawan. Tonight, we're talking youth matters with the chairperson of the NYDA. Do you think ministers, government agencies and so on really take the NYDA seriously as a custodian of youth policy, or they just sort of see you just as a an additional appendage in the president's office there and so on?
Well, firstly, I think the presidency does take the NYDA serious, hence it has put it there. One of the key roles that the NYDA plays is to mainstream youth development within government, within civil society, and elsewhere. So, but what has happened is that we've now passed the National Youth Policy, which guides all departments. Because when you talk about youth development, you're not just talking about what the NYDA must do. It's what every other department must do. Sports and recreation, social development, the police, and everybody else. So, what we've been doing now is that on the 9th of June, we'll be releasing what we call a Status of Youth report, which we did with a research institute that we've initiated called the Youth Development Institute of South Africa, where we now actually going to name and shame. Because the youth policy is there. If a department is not implementing that youth policy, it means they are not in line with what they're supposed to be doing. So we'll be talking to all the ministers. And one of the things that we've really been saying is that there needs to be a special dispensation where young people are concerned. When you speak about procurement, for instance, youth-owned businesses, let there be 30% set aside. When you talk about small business development, for instance, the ministry, when it comes to issues of young people, issues of red tape must be looked into. Because you can't say when you give a young person funding, you give them a loan and you do all these background checks, it means no young person will ever get a funding.
But does it mean, because you are speaking in future tense now?
No, no, I'm speaking about...
No, in terms of this thing about set-asides and so on. But after, how long has the NYDA been there? Can you give me 2 or 3 big things that you can say, these things that have benefited young people is as a result of a direct intervention by NYDA?
Well, just a month ago, we were celebrating the 4th anniversary of the Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship Fund. It has assisted over 400 young students. The first batch of graduates which were doing diploma courses was what we launched a month ago. Next year, there's 300 more. These are young people that have studied courses in pilots, engineering, tourism. We've given them a full bursary, so their lives have changed. We've got a very vibrant economic participation model as the NYDA, which works differently from other departments. For instance, we don't give out loans to young people. We give out grants for their businesses. We give up startup grants. To date, it has been the most successful government program because 67% of those that we've actually funded have actually succeeded. Whereas if you look at your IDC and other people who, it's actually not even a percentage over 30%. So what we're doing actually makes impact.
You're talking tiny amounts. If you're talking about 67,000, what is the biggest loan that the NYDA can give small businesses or rather youth businesses?
Well, you remember, part of what we do, we want to give young people what we call a hands up. So that, because most of the biggest challenges when it comes to SMME is that people always want what we call startup capital, which is what is crucial, right? So what we do is that we take these young people, we train them through a rigorous training process where they know how to do a business plan, how to do this and that. Then we give them the money. So for instance, a young person says, look, I want to open, quite a big, I don't know, a butchery or something. Then we're able to say, look, here's the machinery. Here's how this particular system works. But what we've now done, we've now launched what we call a youth fund, which is going to look at franchise funding. It's going to look at young industrialists and so on and so on. So we're raising $1 billion to be able to help those particular.
Sounds like a slight duplication with the Minister of Small Business. What is your collaboration with them? Because you're talking startup capital. You know it's the biggest problem for starting of businesses. That ministry was set up to make sure that such things do not become a problem anymore. And just recently, they rolled over 180 million rand. I didn't hear NYDA complain.
No, we did complain.
To her or to public?
We're complaining. If there's one thing about this NYDA that I lead, we're quite very vocal, we're quite very open.
They take you seriously? Because what was the explanation of rolling over so much money?
No, there's one thing about society must take us very serious. We're not just talking here. When we say something is going to happen, it's going to happen. And I'm saying to you that we're engaging that particular ministry to say, on issues of startup capital, because you can't be rolling over money where else you can actually fund young people. The issue there has been the issue around red tape, which I'm now happy that government is starting to look into. And hence we are saying that while it's doing that, let's look at issues of set-asides for young people. And that's a discussion that we're having, and I'm sure it's a battle that we're going to win.
Interesting that you say that society takes you serious and so on. It has not always been like that. what are you doing to in a sense, get young people to have more credibility or take the NYDA a lot more serious, number one? Secondly, if you recall that there's always been this thing, this lingering thing that says this is a deployment thing for ANC Youth League and so on. Yeah. How biased or not is the NYDA as far as its commissioners and its staff when it comes to political diversity? Well,
you are correct. The NYDA over some years has faced some credibility issues. But this is because when it started, you know, it was a match of two institutions, as you said when you started. Yes. But what we've now done over the last 4 years was to fix the governance issues, employ the right people in the right places. We've just recently employed the youngest CEO in the country, a very well qualified chartered accountant. We've started employing the right people in the right places. The board itself, by the way, we were appointed through a public process. We were called to Parliament, and all the interviews were actually made live. So what I'm trying to say is that one of the things that we are resolving is that NYDA needs to be where young people are. Because most of the offices, you find them in metropolis areas. So we've started initiating opening branches in the townships, opening branches where young people are in the rural areas.
But with the existing branches, there's always a sense of complaint about you know, your turnaround time and so on. Somebody on Facebook, Ole Bucheng, saying, why is NYDA taking so much time to assist upcoming business people? Have you picked up some of the inefficiencies, and are you putting systems in place for turnaround of when a young person, from the time they ask to the time you give them grants?
Well, one of the first things we did when I came, we convened the entire staff of the NYDA, because I myself was not happy with the manner in which young people are saying we enter offices, we're not getting the right assistance. And I've started picking up also as time went on that probably we needed to put the right people in the right places. Because somewhere, somehow, you may find that maybe some people are misplaced and so on. And we've started doing that work. We've shaked up the executive now. We're shaking up the managers now. In fact, today, we've even started a hotline to say if a young person enters an office of the NYDA and does not get satisfactory assistance, those particular young people must call that hotline, which comes directly to me, so that I'm able to intervene directly. So we are turning the corner. It will take some time, but I'm quite confident that we are now moving.
In terms of your budget, I mean, I raised the issue about how much, what is the biggest grant you can grant. I want us to talk a little bit about that in as far as economic development. That's what you do, really shaking you know, the place in as far as entrepreneurship is concerned, in as far as young people feel that they can go to, instead of going to the IDC and NEF, which you have indicated. So after the break, I want us to just talk about the numbers there. We're talking Youth Matters tonight with the chairman of the NYDA. Let's take a break.
And shut up, you stay lazy and listen.
The Honorable President told me to shut up.
It's up to the leadership of the DA to make a decision whether we continue to fight like they're doing now, or we put the people of the city of Cape Town first.
You must go, Chief. You call me a dog here.
Ma, come back and leave after giving us a signal.
This is SABC News. Our stories.
How do I begin?
Our lives. When all seems to fail, we will raise our voices a bit louder for our justice.
Well, I went into absolute shock. My whole body was shaky. I couldn't hold a phone, but there he was. I couldn't believe the nonchalant that they were still in the area 2 weeks later.
And in times when the justice system is not able to help us with our individual battles,
I'm willing to do anything. What are you doing? Nothing. Feeling sorry for yourself? No, it's not an option.
These are our stories on Cutting Edge Channel 404.
We're coming to you live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg, and tonight we're talking Youth Matters. We're going to do this throughout the month in different ways. But tonight let's start at the top, and I'll talk to the man right at the top of the youth agenda. The youth unemployment, huge, terrible, right? It means that the resources needed to change that situation must be serious. Do you think that, first of all, you are adequately funded as an NYDA? And secondly, if a young person is out there having an idea that needs startup of 2 million, 3 million, or even 10 million, are you the right people for them to come to, or they must go somewhere else?
Well, the NYDA is not sufficiently funded at all. The budget of the NYDA is just over 400 million. Look, there was a huge salary bill which ran close to 200 million, but we had to cut that and keep it within 35% of the entire budget. We're investing quite a lot of resources in education, as I said, through the Solomon Mahlangu. But we've also invested some resources in economic participation. But what we've then done is that we're not going to sit and complain all the time about government, you know, because if you look at over 400 million, it means, in essence, when you look at 19 million economically active young people, government is actually spending 20 rand per young person per annum.
That's totally unacceptable.
That is unacceptable.
What are you doing about it? Have you presented a different model of funding to government?
We've presented a different model.
Which is how much are you wanting government to spend on
at the very minimum, the NYDA should have close to 2 billion in terms of its own budget. But what we've now done, we said we don't want to sit and complain. We've now initiated a separate fund. Now, what we do with this fund, we've actually even traveled all over the world trying to raise money over certain projects. We've just launched a fund about 6 months ago. So far, it's sitting at close to 78 million. Now, that particular money is the one that is going to give those young people who want 2 million, who want 5 million, and so on and so on. And that fund will be administered by a separate...
What's the ceiling now in terms of what
as
I
said, the only thing that we do is purely just on startup capital. We give out a grant of up to 250. When we came in, it was about 100,000, but we've changed it.
So you are get to small business of youth. What about the big entrepreneurs who are young, who have big ideas, like this industrialization program? Surely there are young people who can come to with a business plan of R1 billion, you know, or $500 million. You're not involved in that kind of big scale entrepreneurship?
No, what we do, remember also, our job is to also be able to cut across all government departments. So when a young person comes with that type of a proposal, we're able to give them an endorsement letter and able to take them. We work very well with the IDC. We've got 2 billion rands, by the way, that is ring-fenced by the IDC to help
for young
people. So the only mistake there was that their requirements were quite stringent, and it's a discussion that we're having. So there is already 2 billion there. But I think this fund that we've now started will actually revolutionize this particular issue. But there's one issue that I quickly want to raise to you, because there's an essence of thinking that those who are involved in entrepreneurship is those probably who are big and so on. But if you wake up every morning, there's young people selling feather dusters on the street corner. There's young people selling on the trains.
You say you need to look at the whole range.
Yes, we need
not just big business.
Because if you give that young man who sells feather dusters and whatever 10,000, for instance, that person will be able to buy stock. That particular business will be able to grow. If you look at those young people who wake up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning, go into the train stations and sell in different carriages, we need to take those particular young people.
Are you able, in your view, to reach them? Because some of them don't even know, right, of what extent you can assist them and so on. Is there an aggressive program to reach these young people? And what will be your assessment of your success in that regard?
Well, last year we've convened them. This year, now in June, we're convening them again. Those particular young people in the informal sort of businesses. And we're giving them the various skills. But one thing that we pick up out of them is that those are the real entrepreneurs. Because every morning they are awake at 5. They are in all the... You can't even miss them. There's not even sick days. They're always there. So we want to be able to take those particular young people, develop them properly, so that they're able to grow into proper business people. So
those young people who live in municipalities, and you saw the Auditor General's report about the horrendous management of finances in municipalities. On understand if you say there isn't enough money. Is the NYDA and the youth leadership of this country raising enough issues of corruption, mismanagement, and so on that are happening across provinces, across agencies? Today, front page, you saw various SOEs wasting money and so on. Do you think your voice is loud enough there so that money can be diverted to young people?
Well, we needed to first resolve the issues in the NYDA. So in the last 4 years, the NYDA has had consecutive clean audits.
Okay.
We've now achieved 100% performance on all our key performance areas. So once we've achieved that, because it's good and well to make noise about people who are...
Other people,
yes,
yeah.
but you've got your own problems. But now I think one of the things that we'll be having, I mean, as you know, we'll have our youth parliaments where ministers will come, agencies will come, and we'll start to have a frank discussion to say, if municipalities can spend 10 billion and nobody knows where it has gone. If that 10 billion can actually be invested into building youth centers, into building, youth development institutes within our municipalities, the situation could have been better. So that's a discussion we're going to be having with mayors, with ministers, to say really, we think that that money that is wasted there can be better invested into young people.
Are you very involved in issues of shaping education? I mean, we're talking about what, maybe 70% of schools not having libraries, for example. I mean, what kind of people are going to produce from these schools? Are you interested in that kind of intervention where you deal with departments like education to get them to align what they are doing with your agenda? Briefly.
Well, yes. Education is it's actually the second apex priority that we have as the NYDA. By the way, even on the issue of fees must fall, we went to the commission, we submitted. When the judge released the report, the NYDA was the first one to say, take that report into the shredder, because that report represented nothing of what young people wanted. And what the former president announced as an intervention for free.
Because of a vacuum of leadership that students 9 years after the resolution was passed, they had to go into the state and say fees must fall. Don't you think so?
Let me make this point.
I'm saying it is too late in the day.
I'm saying there was a commission established. That commission came out with 750 useless pages as recommendations. We said take those things and put them into a shredder. We're the one who came up with the threshold of 350,000, by the way. We're the ones who sat with the president and said, President, the time has come for you to start listening to young people, and that decision was taken. On basic education, for instance, we are now calling for the provision of uniform. As you know, if you are a nurse, you get free uniform. If you are a police, you get free uniform. But we are saying young people must go to school, and the first thing that they must do is buy uniform. Provide free uniform. I think we'll have to invite you again to continue the conversation. But thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you.
That was Frankly Speaking, coming to you live from Auckland Park. There's not enough time to deal with all the youth issues, but we'll be dealing with that throughout this month. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.